is your food coming from? Can you name your farmer? Can you actually picture them? I see carrots in bags at the grocery store and squint across the miles trying to make them out. When I go to the farmer's market, I make a point of meeting my carrot farmers. I attach their face to my carrots, so when I use them in a meal or just snack on them, I have that real connection. Do you think that's strange? I think it's a good practice. It makes your food more real. And what if you live in a city of nearly 2 million people, where summer daytime temperatures hover around 104 on average? What kind of farmers or fresh food are you finding there? In near desert conditions, where the numbers point to food desert, we find a farmer making a difference for her community, now and for future generations. Welcome to One Bite is Everything, the podcast that uncovers what you don't know about your food. In today's episode, you'll meet farmer Rachel Opio of LIghthouse Farm, a beacon of hope in a hot, dry, literal food desert with a vision for connecting her community to real food. In the desert climate of Phoenix, Arizona, Rachel's mission rises like a phoenix of its own, from a tangle of backyard plants to an urban oasis that is chipping away at this urban food desert, an all too common occurrence across the United States as small farms disappear, leaving 40.5 million Americans in communities without access to affordable, healthy food options, especially fresh fruits and vegetables, due to the absence of farms, farmers markets, or even grocery stores within convenient traveling distance.
I live in Central Phoenix. In fact, I live in the same house I grew up in. I bought it from my parents. So this neighborhood and community is truly mine. It's the only one I know. It's the one I love. I originally started a small garden in my backyard, but it was for my mother because that was her thing. She was a little hobby gardener, but a hobby haphazard gardener. So she would just throw seeds in the ground and hope for the best. And then when things would actually grow, see, my mom couldn't cook, so she didn't actually harvest anything. It was just like, no, just look at it. One time I tried to harvest a beet and she lost it, but it's because she didn't know how to cook the beet. She didn't know what to do with it. It didn't come in a can. So what's she supposed to do with that? It was just like, cool, I did it, And then when she passed away a few years ago, I just kind of let her garden go because I really was just financing her hobby. But it got to a point where it was just really just overrun with weeds and whatnot. So I decided to go out there and fix it up. So when I got into it, that ecotherapy really helps with that grieving process is what I came to understand. So then I thought, well, I should just use this and grow some food for my family. So I did. And then it became, why don't I just use this and grow food for not just my family, but my neighbors across the street? So I did. And I've actually always wanted to farm, but when I would tell people that, they always would laugh at me. So I was just didn't really say anything after that. I went into the tech industry and all that kind of stuff. And so I thought to myself, why don't I just do this? Why don't I actually just start a farm and grow for everybody? I had noticed that when you go to the store and you're buying collard greens, you're getting 5 leaves, and the cost of them out here is $4 or $5 for 5 leaves. Are you kidding me? That's absurd, especially in an underserved population like where I live in Central Phoenix.
In Central Phoenix, food insecurity is a pressing issue, particularly for communities such as low-income families, communities of color, seniors, and immigrant populations. These groups often face significant barriers to accessing healthy, affordable, and culturally appropriate food due to factors like economic challenges, limited transportation, and historical inequities. Despite being in an urban area, some neighborhoods experience conditions more typical of rural food deserts, relying on convenience stores rather than full-service grocery options. According to Feeding America, 1 in 6 people are facing food insecurity, and the USDA reports that many neighborhoods in Central Phoenix are classified as food deserts where access to grocery stores is limited. Poverty rates in some areas exceed 30%, exacerbating the issue as residents struggle to afford nutritious food. This has led to higher rates of diet-related health problems, including obesity and diabetes, as reported by the CDC. Additionally, about 10% of households lack access to a vehicle, further complicating their ability to reach stores with healthier options, underscoring the deep-rooted disparities in food access. It's a tough situation, but with community-driven efforts like Little Lighthouse Farm and smarter policies, there's hope for bringing better, healthier food options to everyone.
So I kind of started getting into the whole like food insecurity thing and like, let me just grow food for people. But at the end of the day, I realized that it wasn't food insecurity that was an issue here. The issue is food apartheid. So like everybody has access to food here, to find a McDonald's or any other nonsense on any corner, no problem. And some of those places take SNAP benefits too now. So it makes sense, right? Why not use your benefits and go buy some pizza somewhere or whatever? So I realized people had access to food. They just didn't have access to good food, nutrient-dense food, where you understand where your food comes from. And then with that, I really got into the science of soil. And so that's what led me to the regenerative portion of agriculture. And so that's what I do. I practice everything regenerative. So I have about a quarter acre that I grow on at my house. I grow pretty much everything I can. And because I am regenerative and employ those types of practices like cover cropping and whatnot, growing in the summer for me is not a problem because you create that microclimate yourself, right? So growing here in the summer was not a problem, especially last summer. We had over a month of 115 plus days consecutively. And so most people couldn't grow anything, but here I was cover cropping with like sweet potato and mint and stuff like that. So then I had like tomatoes growing underneath the sweet potato, so they're staying protected from the sun. I had eggplant doing the same thing, okra providing shade for like collard greens to continue to grow. So stuff like that. And yeah, it's just really important to me to feed as many people as I possibly can with real food that you know where it's coming from. Same with like my chickens, you know what they're doing. So the eggs are something you can trust. And the other thing I've also gotten into is seed saving.
Seed saving is the practice of collecting seeds from mature plants for future planting, focusing on selecting seeds from the best performing plants to preserve and enhance desirable traits like size, taste, and resilience. The process involves harvesting, drying, and properly storing seeds to ensure their viability. This age-old practice supports sustainability, reduces costs, and helps maintain genetic diversity within crops, making it a key component of self-sufficient and resilient agriculture.
I noticed that was a big ask around for people too, wanting to grow their own food, but they don't trust the seeds at the store. Whereas, they bought some cauliflower for me and now I have seeds, so they're all about that life.
I'm going to back up for a second. Why were people laughing when you said you wanted to be a farmer?
I'm a Black female, and my ancestors, just like most of our ancestors here, were brought here to be land stewards. We knew what we were doing. So we were brought here to fix it and make quite a bit of money for a country. And so I think that there's a lot of professions for us just throughout the years that have evolved because they've really been demonized. You're a farmer, you don't make any money. You're told like if you're a farmer, you don't have any money. That's what you do when you don't have anything else. But there was always something about it with me that just resonated really deeply. To me, it was just like, that seems like the life, like just out here growing food, taking care of stuff. That sounds wonderful to me. But when I would tell people that, I think that was kind of the mindset, like farm. It's not really something that you're going to make any money at. Like, how are you going to do anything? I also think that unfortunately, sometimes we equate it to like education too, like farm. So like, go to college, that kind of thing. So I didn't tell anybody. I stopped telling people for years and years. It wasn't until my mom passed and I brought it back up. In fact, right before I started my farm, I said I wanted to farm and they said, "You are so weird." And now this person is probably one of my biggest customers and is constantly asking for consultation how to grow food or sending people my way. And Always, honestly, it's been my biggest cheerleader, which is hilarious.
So do you think that like our society in those intervening years between you're so weird and now please give me everything you've got, do you think that there's been a societal shift? Do you think that's on a more personal?
I think it's a little bit of both, to be honest. First off, there's a lot more access to see how things are done, right? So think about Food Inc.
Food Inc. is a documentary film that exposes the hidden realities of the American food industry. It investigates how major corporations like Tyson have transformed food production into a highly industrialized process, prioritizing profit over health, environmental sustainability, and animal welfare. The film reveals the harsh conditions faced by workers, the detrimental impacts on the environment, and the ethical issues surrounding the treatment of animals. Through interviews with farmers, industry experts, and activists, Food Inc. challenges viewers to reconsider their food choices and the broader implications of industrial agriculture. If you haven't seen it, I urge you to take a look.
Before that movie came out, people didn't know what Tyson was up to. You just bought the chicken and kept it moving. So you didn't really know exactly what was going on. And so I think more and more of that happens, especially we all love how Netflix likes to, tell on everyone because then we know, right? It gives us information and we can make informed decisions and we're grateful for that. Otherwise, I don't think we even think about it. And that's a lot of the feedback I've gotten. Probably about a month ago, I had somebody just knock on my door, and it was a gentleman who said he and his wife had just watched the Twin Experiment on Netflix, and it was the episode called "You Are What You Eat." And after they watched it, they said, "Nope, can't do it anymore." Looked up local farmers near me, and they were like 2 blocks away, so they were real excited. But yeah, so I think it's kind of a little bit of both, really, personal changes, but I think that's the consequence of the ability to have that information now. It's more available.
3 little words, farmer near me, people. Just put it in the Google and see what happens. You could really meet your new best friend and your best advisor.
Agreed.
So when you're talking about being in Phoenix, your home, and noticing, right, like it's not food scarcity, it's food apartheid. Tell me about that perspective and what you see is happening with basically your existence as a farmer and that community that's experiencing that apartheid.
Well, so my community, like I said, is very underserved. Even with the more recent gentrification, I still think probably a solid 80% is at least using SNAP benefits.
We have talked about SNAP before, but just as a reminder, SNAP stands for Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, which you may know more commonly as food stamps. It's a nationwide program that spends $112.8 billion to support 42 million people that live below the poverty line.
Right. Which nothing wrong with that. I think it's great, especially here in Arizona. We have a program called Double Up Food Bucks. So if you're buying from a local grower who's able to accept SNAP, now your $500 for your family is now $1,000. That to me is amazing. Now, what I've noticed, however, is that a lot of prices for things are increasing due to that Double Up Food Bucks. So not so much just, this is where we're at and it's inflation. I hate to say this, but it was more like a purposeful, let's keep them out of this type thing. And so that has really been difficult for me to watch and to see people just around, like even my own brother who has SNAP benefits. He's not going to any grocery store to buy produce with his SNAP benefits. No, absolutely not. When you have fast food places that now take SNAP, and so now you can feed your whole family on some pizza and wings, rather than having to go buy some groceries with produce and take the time to make it and all that other stuff. So it's just stuff like that I'm noticing more and more. However, people still want real food. You know what I mean? They're like desperate to have real food. And it's almost like this trap. It's inaccessible. But then these same people are probably also using health benefits provided by the government. But they're always going to be in this really weird cycle where their health isn't really ever going to improve. They can't access proper nutrients to help them. They're dependent on these synthetic medications or whatever the case may be. And that's just really hard for me to watch.
Do you accept SNAP benefits?
I've applied to accept them, so I'm hoping to accept them quite soon. Also for the WIC program, and we also have a senior food nutrition program here as well. So applied for all of those. So I'm hoping to be able to accept that because I know that there's a lot of people in my community that have those benefits.
I heard from Rachel following this conversation, and I just want you to know that she has been approved to accept SNAP benefits, which is so good for her community.
Especially if they knew I was down the street, like, come on, come on over, bring your little kiddos. You want to see my chickens? I'll show you everything, let's have a farm tour.
I just don't understand how, the fried chicken fast food restaurant down the street has an allowance for SNAP.
I will say I'm noticing a bit of a shift, and I really enjoy that it's happening at our kids level, right? The K through 12 level. So the schools here were given opportunity for funding to purchase also from local growers for their cafeterias. A lot of them are starting gardens. I actually recently started a little urban farm